Sir, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, would you please state and spell your name?
My name is Stan Stojkovic, spelled S-T-A-N, last name S-T-O-J-K-O-V as in Victor, I-C.
Go ahead, Ms. Herzog.
Thank you. Dr. Stojkovic, could you tell us where you are employed?
I work at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee.
What was your title with the university in 2017?
I was Dean of the Helen Bader School of Social Welfare at the university.
I'm going to ask you some questions about university research versus independent consulting.
Okay.
Let's say a company wants to hire the university to perform research. So the company's hiring the university. In a nutshell, what happens?
What happens is there's a formal process where they have to basically engage with whatever the contact person is. It's usually a faculty member or some member of the administrative staff associated with a school, particular school or college. And then they're told about the particular rules, the policies, the procedures, how that works, and the liaisons, both with our graduate school, which tends to process our grants, as well as individuals in the schools and colleges who may have policies and procedures about grant activity. They're also told about the expenses, about the allocations, the rules associated with the distribution of dollars, how all that works, how tasks are performed. All that is pretty much spelled out to people if they decide to contract specifically with the university.
And who does that entity, if they're contracting with the university, who are they sending payments to?
Typically, they'll send the payments to the graduate school. The graduate school then works with the individual school or college, and then ultimately a department or a program as to who receives those dollars. And typically what happens is companies will entertain these relationships, and then ultimately, they'll realize up front, and they willfully enter into this. There's what we call an indirect charge associated with all experiences and all activities, I should say, associated with the grant.
So let's say a company wants to hire you personally, not the university.
Mm-hmm.
What happens then?
Well, what they do is they can make that arrangement with you. There's nothing to preclude them, obviously, from doing that. They can do that. I always try to encourage people to bring things into the campus because it made the campus look good, and the department of school, the individual faculty member, in terms of his or her appraisal every year, an annual summary. It was good to bring grant money. It was one of the things that you were evaluated on as a professor. So to the university, there was a lot of benefit. There was also a benefit, obviously, to the company, because now they had a direct association with the university and the department and or school or college involved.
If there's a grant relationship with the university, not if you're an independent consultant.
Right. No, you don't have that as an independent consultant. As an independent consultant, again, they can do that. They can choose to do that, and then they're left with the terms that they come to with that independent consultant. That's it.
So what's the benefit of a company going through the university?
Well, it's the association, it's the affiliation, it's being affiliated with a university that is, respected, can perform the activity, it has the requisite competencies, the individuals, the staff, the people who ultimately, have to do the work, and it could entail a lot of work, obviously. That's what they're paying for, but they like that affiliation. Many companies like that affiliation. Some companies don't, and some entities don't. Depends on the entity, depends on what they want to achieve, depends on what both their short-term goal in the project, and they may have a longer-term goal in the project. Some projects go on for years. We have a couple of those in the Helen Bader School of Social Welfare that were started many, many years ago, and they still continue to this day.
If you're an independent contractor and you contract with a company, does the university see any of that money?
No. The contractor ultimately has a relationship, and then they have an understanding whether there's a consulting fee, there's a flat fee, however that's performed, whatever the duties or activities that are required to be performed, that's between the independent contractor and the campus, and the entity. So they have to come to terms on that, and I would have nothing to do with that.
So I'm going to ask you a little bit about Dr. Hassell in particular. You're aware she's a faculty member in the Helen Bader School of Social Welfare.
Yes.
Um, you're aware that she was doing some work with Milwaukee Police Department?
Yes.
Right prior to 2018, did anyone from the Milwaukee Police Department complain to you about her work?
Yes.
Could you tell me about that occasion?
Yes. I was called by a representative. Actually, it was the chief of staff of the Milwaukee Police Department. He was chief of staff of Chief Flynn at the time. Edward Flynn was the police chief. That he wanted to talk to me about some activities that were going on with MPD and consulting relationship that he had with Professor Hassell. I agreed to meet with him, and we met down by the police district, or number one. Actually, we met in my car. He came out and we sat in my car, and he started telling me about problems associated with Professor Hassell and her performance. And I said, I don't want to hear any of that. That has nothing to do with me. We had no formal collaboration with MPD at that point in time. I don't know anything about this. I don't know the particulars. That's not my problem. You chose to contract with her, so now you're going to have to deal with that. And if you don't like her performance, well, then you can do what you think is correct as a response, but I have no control over that, and I don't want to hear anything about it, quite frankly. And so I think he was a little bit disheveled by that. He wanted me to make some kind of assessment or comment, and I said, no, I would not do that.
And that was, I apologize, I think I said the wrong year earlier. That was prior to 2017?
Yes.
You have a copy of this letter that you sent to Chief Flynn on March 27th?
Yes, I do.
In there, you say the police chief on multiple occasions described a partnership between UWM and MPD when he was actually referring to Dr. Hassell's work. Could you describe those occasions?
Yes, Chief Flynn and I and a number of religious leaders, community leaders, business leaders, the chief had called together a group of people to meet periodically to discuss methods to reduce homicide, to address violence in the city of Milwaukee. And he had assigned his assistant police chief to put this group together, and I was asked to be part of that group. It was a group of about 25 to 30 people, and a lot of it entailed listening sessions. And during those, he would give us updates about the police department, about what they were doing, violence reduction efforts, programs, all sorts of things. And he stated on one occasion that he had this collaboration with UWM to address and assess some activity that was going on inside the MPD. I had approached him after the meeting and said, you do not have a collaboration with UWM. You have a collaboration with a consultant. And I wish you would just restrict your comments to saying that you have this consultant that you've hired who just so happens to work at UWM, but is not a formal collaboration or partnership with the university. He understood. We went our separate ways. The next time we met, he did it again. And so I went to him and said, why are you doing this? He didn't really have a response. He was a little bit confused, is the way I took it. He didn't understand what the big deal was. And I told him it is a big deal, largely because there are rules and regulations associated with a formal collaboration. And you don't have that with us. You have a relationship with a consultant. And that relationship is between the two of you, but we don't have any control or say over that. And we don't want to be affiliated if something goes south, if something doesn't go correctly or is misinterpreted. It's not the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. It's an individual consultant, in this case, Kimberly Hassell. He went back and I said, listen, I've got to memorialize this. I've got to put this down. And that's when I sent the letter. I sent the letter to him and telling him in no uncertain terms why I thought I needed to do that and why it was inappropriate for him to talk about this as a collaboration. And that was the extent of it.
So I'm going to back up a little bit. In 2017, do you recall Dr. Hassell sending you a notice stating that she was going to be starting a new consulting project with the MPD?
You know, vaguely I do. It's been a while now, plus years. I vaguely recall, yeah, receiving this. Yes.
Was that the first project you'd heard about in a while?
Yeah, I would say that that's probably correct. Yeah.
You say more than a year, more than 2 years?
Probably a couple of years. Oftentimes, faculty members will come to department chairs, talk with other faculty, and then it'll get to me that they're interested in a particular assessment or activity or research. And then I'll inquire as to, all right, where are we going from there? Are you actually doing a collaboration? Are you talking with people? What are you doing? And then we see how it fleshes out. It starts out typically informal, a conversation, and then it can become highly formalized.
So looking at the first line of this letter, it looks like she told you about the new project and then you sent the letter. Does that timing sound
Yeah,
correct?
that sounds correct. Yep.
In a broad sense, why did you write this letter? What was your motivation?
My motivation in this was to get clarity with Chief Flynn. We had over many years. You've got to remember, I've known 7 to 8 police chiefs since the early 1980s, and we have had that sort of uneven relationship with MPD. Some of it formalized, some of it not. If it's not formalized, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. But if it's going to be a formal collaboration, then there's rules, there's policies, there's procedures. And, I didn't want him saying those things unless we actually had a formal collaboration. And he chose, for whatever reason, and I can only speculate the reasons, but he chose, for whatever reason, not to go through a formal collaboration, but to do a consulting relationship. That's his choice. That's fine. But I had a responsibility as the dean that if statements were being made about an actual collaboration, that it actually was a collaboration, and that policies and procedures were followed in that regard, whether they be budgetary policies, personnel issues. There's a whole slew of rules and regulations around a formal collaboration. And I wanted to make sure that we had everything, the I's dotted and the T's crossed if we were going to have that. So I wanted him to know this was not a formal collaboration. Now, he never responded to this letter. I never heard back from him, verbally or in writing. He never got back to me. So that was his prerogative.
So you know why we're here today, so I'm just going to ask you, were you retaliating against Dr. Hassell when you wrote this letter?
No, it had nothing to do with Dr. Hassell. It had everything to do with understanding what a formal collaboration was and educating Chief Flynn about that. That's all this was about, nothing else.
I'm going to talk about the IRB a little bit. Did you ever talk to anyone at the IRB about Dr. Hassell's research?
No.
Did the IRB ever tell you they were investigating Dr. Hassell and talk to you about their investigation?
No.
Have you ever directed the IRB to conduct an investigation?
No.
Have you ever directed someone else to direct the IRB to conduct an investigation?
No.
Have you ever told the IRB how to conduct an investigation or what findings to make?
No.
Does the IRB usually tell you if a faculty member is non-compliant?
They're required, my understanding is to inform the dean of the school or college, pardon me, of such an action. In 16 and a half years as dean, I never was contacted by an IRB about inappropriate behavior.
And so is it safe to assume then you never got a notice that Dr. Hassell was non-compliant?
Not to my knowledge, no, I don't recall ever receiving such notice.
So how many years were you the dean?
16 and a half years.
Have you ever disciplined anyone for IRB non-compliance?
No.
Okay. That's all I have for now and I'll reserve the right to redirect.
Okay, go ahead with Cross.
Thank you. Dr. Stojkovic, I'm going to refer to you as Dean Stojkovic, if that's okay, since you were dean at the time, and I just want to have the record be clear. Is that okay with you?
No, I'm professor now. I'm not dean.
Oh, okay. So can I call you former dean then?
Sure.
Okay, great. Great. So you're alleging that the chief of staff of the Milwaukee Police Department wanted to meet with you and complained about my work. You met in the car. When did this happen?
I don't recall a specific date. I can only say it was probably about 6, 7 years ago. This individual, I can't even remember his name. I thought his first name was Mike, but I don't even remember his name. I just remember the event because it stood out. It was very unusual. I never had such a phone call before, but I don't recall the exact date.
So you discussed the matter during a phone call?
No, this was done in my car.
Okay. And what did the chief of staff allegedly want to complain about?
Performance issues. He was concerned about performance issues, and would I discuss with you these performance issues? And I said, no, I would not do that.
Okay. When did the listening sessions occur? You referenced 2 listening sessions. When did they occur?
They occurred sometime, I don't know specifically, but they occurred, if I recall correctly, sometime in 2014, 2015, sometime in there, maybe a little bit later. I don't have the exact dates. I do remember that they occurred at the Boys and Girls Club, I believe it is, right off of 6th and Juneau, I think it is, down right near Pfizer Forum downtown. The assistant chief at the time, she had set them up. And again, as I stated earlier, this was a working group put together by the police department to address violence in the city. But the specific dates off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you.
Okay, 2014, 2015 is good, thank you. The assistant chief who arranged these listening sessions, that was Assistant Chief Hudson, Edith Hudson?
Yes.
Great, thank you. And Felmers Cheney, the board for Felmers Cheney, they were part of this group, is that correct?
I don't recall Felmers Cheney being part of this. There may have been people who were on Felmers Cheney as well as on this group, but I don't recall, because there were about 20 to 25 people, as I stated earlier, who were in the group. They included religious leaders, business people, professionals in social services. Again, the broad issue was trying to address violence, but I don't know if any member of Felmers Cheney was on there. They could have been. I just don't recall.
Okay, and there were 2 listening sessions?
Oh, no, these things went on for about almost, I want to say, 1.5 to 2 years, until the chief just ended it. He just stopped it. I don't think he was feeling that he was getting anything out of it. But again, I don't want to put words in his mouth. He can comment on it himself, but he just stopped it. No, these were things that were going on. Rather, I think we were meeting every month. And again, Edith Hudson would know better than I just don't recall all the particulars.
Okay, but they went on for years and Edith Hudson arranged all of them?
Yeah, she set up the meetings.
Okay, thank you. Chief Flynn attended every single one of these meetings?
I don't know if he attended every one, but he was at a lot of the beginning meetings. I don't recall if he attended all of the meetings, but he did attend most of them.
And Rick Lovell attended these meetings as well, correct?
Yes, he did.
You stated that Chief Flynn discussed a collaboration with UWM. Somebody from UWM was doing some violence or work with violence in his department. Is that correct? Is that what you?
I'm not sure if it was violence, but it was something related to police addressing crime, addressing citizens' issues with crime, and it was fairly generic at that point in time. I don't remember the particulars.
Okay, and how do you know he was referencing Dr. Hassell?
Well, I went up to him and I said to him, "Are you referring to this work?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And I said, "Well, then you have a misunderstanding, and I wish you would stop doing this. Stop saying these things, because you don't have a relationship with us. You have a relationship with her as a consultant." And I believe he never really understood why that was important. I don't think he ever really internalized that, quite frankly. And he just sort of was dismissive when it came to that. And I think that's why he continued to do it. He just did not see what was going on. And so I had to formalize it, and that was the purpose of the letter.
Okay, how many times did he do it?
I can recall twice, but he may have done it even more. But I can recall those two incidents. That's what I recall.
Okay, but you testified that his chief of staff had performance issues, allegedly had performance issues with my work, but Chief Flynn repeatedly referenced that I was working in the department, doing
Objection,
Bible work?
relevance.
No, that what is said, as least I understand it, was that there was referred to the school. I'm not working in the department, so I don't know where that came from. Why don't you, the question as asked, I think mischaracterizes that. Why don't you, I'm not sure how you get to making references to a relationship with UWM and you talking about somebody saying that you worked for them. Those things are not even close to each other. So ask another question because he didn't. So the question is asked doesn't make sense to me. Go ahead and ask another question.
Okay, I'm going to try to ask it again. I'm just confirming that you're saying that. So when did you meet with the chief of staff for the Milwaukee Police Department?
I couldn't give
That's
you
been
this.
answered. We've already went over this question.
We did go over that question. So, and that now just dealing with the ask as far as to deal with do you remember when the two instances that you were talking about, when those occurred?
Are you asking me? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just dealing with it because it seemed to be a question that I was getting to, so I just thought I'd go there.
So
You talking about two instances where he, in your view, improperly referred to a relationship with the university, and when did those occur?
I couldn't give you the specific dates. I do
But
recall.
what years did they occur?
I would say probably somewhere around 2015, somewhere in there.
Both
2016.
instances. When did you believe the first one occurred?
I'd be guessing now, without looking at back, and I'm not sure how I could look back to really verify this, but I would guess it probably occurred somewhere in 2014, 2015. That's my guess.
And what about the second one?
Probably within a couple of months, because we were holding these meetings every couple of months. Assistant Chief Hudson was scheduling these meetings. And then the second one occurred, and it was after the second one then I decided to write this letter that's dated, I believe, March of 2017.
Okay, so how is it that he said after the second one, you wrote that in 2017? I am confused.
Well, my sense is that, I don't remember the exact dates, so I'm left lost with that. I sent the letter, I know, after this second occurrence where there was something that was going on here that didn't make much sense to me. And I had already spoken to the chief that, hey, you can't do this. And again, he really didn't get it. So then I felt the necessity of sending this letter.
Okay, so you're claiming that well, go ahead with the next question, Dr. Hassell.
Okay. I'm just trying to establish a timeline, Dean Stojkovic. I'm a former Dean Stojkovic. Would you say that you met with the chief of staff around the same time as the alleged conflation with UWM Research and Dr. Hassell's Remunerative Consulting? Is it around that time?
I would say it probably was, but could I give you parameters? I don't recall.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you so much. Okay. And again, you said Rick Lovell attended these 2 listening sessions.
To my knowledge, yeah, he was part of the group. Whether or not he attended those specific sessions, I couldn't tell you, but he was part of the group. And I do remember seeing him at the sessions.
Okay. You testified that there are, you were concerned. So Chief Flynn allegedly conflated, UWM Research with my remunerative consult, or Dr. Hassell's remunerative consulting, and you testified that there are policies and procedures on this regarding how MPD chief could represent the partnership. Is that right?
Well, there's formal rules that the graduate school has regarding a formal collaboration and what has to be done and where does the money go and what's the indirect charge and who's responsible and who are the contact people. Those are all formalized rules as part of a formal collaboration. That's correct.
Okay. Are there policies and procedures or rules regarding how practitioners represent these types of private partnerships?
I don't know what you mean by practitioners.
So Chief Flynn said, are there rules and regulations or policies and procedures that about how Chief Flynn, since we were in a remunerative consulting partnership, how he could represent that work?
There are no formalized rules that I understand in a consulting relationship. There are rules about how you understand the products and the goods and the delivery of services, the activities, the tasks that are performed at the university. But in terms of expectations of Chief Flynn, once they sign on the dotted line, yes, then they're told what the expectations are regarding the product, the activities, the timelines, all that, the budgets, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. And when did you first become, well, did anybody discuss with you at all that there were concerns about Dr. Hassell's remunerative consulting work and whether they had been reviewed by the IRB? Did anybody discuss that with you?
No.
Nobody? You do nothing about it?
I knew nothing about it.
So as dean, you're the chief executive of the school by policy. Is that correct?
The dean is
Executive
correct.
officer?
The dean is the chief executive officer of the
Right.
school.
Sorry. So as former dean, at the time when you were dean, you were the chief executive officer of the Helen Bader School of Social Welfare?
Yes.
What does that mean? Exactly.
Well, I'm the one responsible in the delivery of the activities, whether it's the teaching, the service commitments, the research commitments, working with faculty governance structures, the departments. In our case, there were 2 departments. I work with the department chairs. I work with my associate dean, my administrative dean, the support staff to ultimately realize the mission and vision of the school. And that mission and vision had to be consistent with the mission and vision of the university.
Okay. And you oversaw the administrative staff in the school, is that correct?
Yes.
And that would include marketing people?
I'm sorry?
That would include people who are responsible for marketing, from, the public marketing of the school.
Objection, relevance?
What is the relevance?
I'll withdraw it. While you were a faculty member at UWM, so how long have you been at UWM? Or how long were you were a dean for 16 years. How long were you on the faculty, or how long have you been on the faculty?
39 years.
And over the 39 years, have you engaged in remunerative work?
Not sure what you mean, me personally?
Yes.
Uh, do you mean me being a consultant? Is that
Yes.
what you? Yes.
Okay. And did you report, the work you did as a consultant? Did you report those on your annual activity reports? And
Yes, it depends on what the consulting was, but I may have reported them. Again, I don't have them in front of me, so I don't recall specific, but I would generally say, yeah, I did report that as required.
okay, and that could be part of your professional activities, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And would you say your work brought a benefit to the university and the school?
Well, in terms of some kind of connection to the school, I mean, the school, it's hard for me to say that. It could have,
Okay.
but whether or not it did, I don't know.
Okay. And you were aware up to the end of November 2016 that Dr. Hassell had 5 remunerative or consulting projects. Is that right?
I don't know if you had 5.
You conducted the performance reviews every year when you were dean?
No, that's done at the executive committees of the respective respective departments. They do that, and then they make an assessment of the professional reviews. I only get involved if there is some kind of, as dean, if there's some kind of controversy or disagreement about that, but that's really left up to the executive committees within the schools, the departments of the school.
The executive committee by policy makes recommendations to you regarding faculty performance, correct? And then you make the decisions?
Yes.
Okay, so then you did conduct performance reviews every year because you made the decisions regarding faculty performance.
Objection, that's not what he just said.
And this is, I don't seeing any, we're going way off.
Okay.
But anything to do with the situation on this. I know you have a variety of different issues, but I want to stick to the ones before me in this case.
Okay. Were you aware that Dr. Steve Brandel engaged in a lot of remunerative consulting work?
Yes.
Okay. About 24 projects sound about right? Would that be about right, to your knowledge?
I don't know the number.
Okay. Were you aware that Dr. Brandel worked as a remunerative consultant for the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission on an annually recurring basis?
I had heard that he was doing that, but I had no connection with the Fire and Police Commission through his work.
Okay. Were you concerned at all about him working as a private consultant versus running those projects through the university?
As dean, I was concerned, and I had spoken to anybody where there was these kinds of relationships, that these things were going on, that we would prefer those things to come through the school, but I had no authority to tell them to do that. That was ultimately a determination made by the consultant in discussion with the provider. In this case, whether it's the Fire and Police Commission or a police department. Steve Brandel had been doing work with the Milwaukee Police Union for many, many years. And I knew about that, sure.
Okay. Okay, did you talk with Dr. Hassell directly about getting contracts to run through the university?
Once.
Do you recall when that was?
Many years ago. This has to be, I would guess it was at least 10 years ago. I had a conversation with you and Tina, Freiberger. You guys were working on a project, and I had stated, you can run this through the university, and then the organization will have to pay the additional administrative overhead, or you can do this on your own. That's your call, is what I told both of you at that time. That's the last, I remember that conversation, but that has to be at least 10 years ago.
Okay. Is it fair to say you've had a lot of experience doing consulting?
As an individual consultant, you mean?
Yes, with criminal justice organizations?
Yes.
Okay. In your experience, did criminal justice organizations tend to be concerned about paying indirect rates?
Objection,
Yes.
relevance of this?
Oh, sorry.
And what is this again? We're going off into this is
Okay.
this whole, my understanding and the situation is that the issues that he has indicated claimed have solely to do with the representation of the person dealing with about the relationship, going into a bunch of things which
Okay.
I haven't seen the relevance
Okay.
ever. So go
Okay.
ahead with the next question.
Thank you. You have publicly referenced Dr. Hassell's private consulting with Helen Bader School of Social Welfare Research. Is that right?
When you say you, do you mean the school?
I mean you directly, you.
Well, I would do that only as when I was when I was dean.
Right.
Did I ever do that? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I did that.
Okay. So you publicly so just so I understand, you're as dean, when you were dean, you publicly referenced Dr. Hassell's private consulting as being Helen Bader School Social Welfare Research Project.
Objection, that's not what he just testified to.
Okay, that's why I'm trying to understand. So that's why I'm asking the question. Can you please restate your answer so that I'm clear?
Well,
I think the thing is, you said you asked him a question, he answered it, and then you said that he stated a different answer than what you had just asked.
Okay, I'm just trying
So my understanding is that you have two components in the situation, and that you lump them together after only getting the answer to the first one.
Okay.
So the question in dealing with, did you ever reference private consulting work by Dr. Hassell as being work of the Helen Bader School?
No, not work of the Helen Bader School. It was work that she may have been doing, and that was related to the material stuff that we talk about, crime and justice issues in the criminal justice department. But actually making, did I acknowledge this as a formal project of the university? No, because it wasn't.
I'd like to show you a video, complainants exhibit.
We have in the situation as far as impeachment and other things that you can just reference in dealing with the situation, and it says what it does. So for your brief, you want to say that there's contradiction that, then you need to do it that way.
Okay.
Go ahead with the next question.
Okay. You, as when you were dean, did you use UWM monies to create a marketing video to be featured at the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference?
Objection, relevance.
Response?
I'm just establishing that there is a basis for this video, that he created a video using UWM monies.
And what does that have to do with this case?
It goes to exactly what he just said. It goes to the video. I'm just trying to establish that this video was professionally produced and UWM paid for it.
So this video is already entered into evidence. So this is trying to establish foundation for it. It's already been.
That we have, we have a, that's already in evidence as being what it says it is. So go
Right,
on to
but-
something else.
Okay, what's not in evidence and why I asked was if he used UWM monies to,
And I don't understand that to be a distinction
okay,
of any meaning. So go ahead.
all right, thank you. Um, okay. Are you, so, okay, so your testimony, that's okay, let me not ask it. Are you aware of any other faculty members in the Department of Criminal Justice who were doing research with the Milwaukee Police Department around the same time, 2014, 2015, as these listening sessions?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I don't know.
Is it a possibility that other faculty members could have been engaged in a research partnership with MPD?
I guess it's possible.
You weren't aware that around this time, Dr. Freiberger was conducting research that was marketed as UWM research?
I don't recall the particulars of that. I do recall that she was doing something at that time, but did we have an actual formal relationship with MPD? The answer is no.
Okay. Do you know whether the research she was doing had to do with violent crime in the city?
Objection, relevance.
It's not relevant in the situation,
Okay,
dealing with the question. That's not the basis for distinction in this case.
okay. Okay, so I want to go back and ask you about the letter that you wrote to Chief Flynn. Do you have that letter in front of you?
Yes.
Okay, great. What were you trying to convey to Chief Flynn in your March 27, 2017 letter?
I was trying to convey to him that he had no formal relationship with UWM and that he should stop saying that he had a formal relationship based on my conversations with him on at least 2 occasions that I can recall. And that was my intention in writing the letter.
Okay, so if the purpose in writing Chief Flynn was to make sure you didn't conflate Dr. Hassell's consulting with UWM or Helen Bader School of Social Welfare work, why didn't you just end your letter after the first 2 paragraphs that made that clear?
I'm not sure what you're trying to get at. I'm not sure what is it that you want.
You just testified that the reason you wrote the letter was about making sure Chief Flynn did not conflate Dr. Hassell's private consulting with a Helen Bader School of Social Welfare or a UWM research project. Is that correct?
Right, that there was no formal relationship as stated in the first 2 paragraphs, right? And then the subsequent paragraphs are, we do have an interest in collaborating. We do have an interest in research that allows us to address the concerns that maybe a police department might have. We have rules around those kinds of things, and we'd be more than happy to do that. But what we have in this particular instance did not exist. This did not exist at that point in time. If you wanted to talk about having that collaboration, we could have done that, but we never did.
Did you want to establish a partnership with the Milwaukee Police Department?
Well, sure. I'd like to establish partnerships with all sorts of agencies. I have no problem with establishing partnerships, but I have rules and regulations about what those partnerships are and how
Okay.
they are to proceed.
Okay, so that was another basis for writing the letter. You wanted a partnership, and so you wanted to tell him that you were open, you did, the faculty members in the school did good work, and that you'd want a partnership.
Potentially, sure.
Okay.
Every consulting relationship could lead to a more formalized partnership. Most of them do not, however,
Okay,
and for some reasons I stated earlier.
okay, thank you. In your March 27, 2017 letter to Chief Flynn, you referenced compliance with federal law in the context of work performed for MPD 2 times. Why is that?
Well, that's a standard line that we basically use when we tell people we have to have compliance, and we're just going to comply with every state and federal regulation, and pursuant to those rules, we're going to do the project. That's it.
You stated it twice though. Like, so if you state something twice, then you're emphasizing it. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure where you referring to the third paragraph?
There's a place in the third paragraph, and then in the last full paragraph, you reference, staying within federal laws, following federal laws, compliance with federal laws. You make 2 references to that.
Okay. So
you made 2 references as a point of emphasis. Is that correct?
well, yeah, that we are bound by these rules, state law and federal laws, and that we'll follow those. If we have a formal collaboration, that's our intention. We want to make sure that we're compliant.
Okay. And then in the letter, you reference compliance with state law in the context of work performed for MPD 2 times. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. And then in the letter, you reference compliance with university rules, regulations, and/or protocols in the context of work performed for MPD 3 times.
I'm going to object just recips liquidator. Like the letter speaks for itself. It's in the
It does,
record.
this
Okay.
dealing with the
Question.
situation, so these
Okay.
are, asking for what is in the thing is not asking for any information. So go ahead with the next question and there's,
Okay, thank you. Are you aware that the same day or that you drafted or by, I'm making that conclusion because the date on the letter, the same date that you drafted and sent the letter to Chief Flynn, that's the exact same date that Dr. Hassell was notified that there were questions regarding her, whether she complied with human subjects protections, federal, state law, and IRB rules and regulations?
No, I have no knowledge of that. Nothing.
So if you have no knowledge, are you saying it's just a coincidence?
Well, I guess you can characterize it that way, but I had no involvement in any of that. This was a letter to Chief Flynn based on some conversations, discussions that I felt were inappropriate given what he was saying, and I wanted to clarify it. So there was no connection between those two, to my knowledge.
Do you believe a reasonable person could draw the conclusion that by saying that, by stating multiple times?
Objection. I'm just going to object now because she's not
All right.
asking what he thinks. She's asking what a reasonable person would
Okay,
think.
all right.
and
I got it.
dealing with the interpretation, dealing with the question of what it did. So yeah,
Got it.
that's
Okay.
a bad start to a question.
I got it. Thank you. She testified that you, as dean, you wanted to establish a partnership with the Milwaukee Police Department. Were you able to do that as dean? Were you able to establish a partnership with the Milwaukee Police Department while Chief Flynn was commanding the department?
No, we were not able to do that.
And you asked, when you were dean, did you ask Dr. Hassell and other criminal justice faculty members to try to form working partnerships with the Milwaukee Police Department?
I don't recall a specific statement on that, but that would not necessarily be that statement. I could see myself saying that statement, but I just don't remember making that statement.
Okay. Do you remember asking criminal justice faculty members to, I'm gonna withdraw that. Do you remember, okay, did you, when you were dean, did you, with Provost Britz, meet with Milwaukee Police Department Chief Flynn to discuss a collaboration in creating a crime analysis specialization within the department?
Yes.
Do you remember how Chief Flynn responded to the idea?
Yes.
How did Chief Flynn respond to the idea?
He was not
Objection. This is hearsay and also relevance questions about this.
It's not relevant. Go ahead to
Okay.
the next area.
Okay. Dr. Hassell was able to build a working relationship around that time with the Milwaukee Police Department. Isn't that correct?
To my understanding, yes.
And Dr. Hassell kept you abreast of developments in the work she was doing with the Milwaukee Police Department. Is that correct?
What do you mean by kept me abreast? Like, let me.
Did Dr. Hassell update you regarding work she was doing with the Milwaukee Police Department when you asked her to build a relationship with the department?
I don't recall that at all.
Do you recall Dr. Hassell telling you that the Milwaukee Police Department Intelligence Fusion Center had made her a credentialed research partner?
No, I don't remember that at all.
Okay. Have you ever been critical of the Milwaukee Police Department in a public way, like media interviews, editorials?
Objection. Relevance.
Please let her finish this thing, but it's not relevant. Go ahead to the
Okay.
next question.
Okay. Have you always submitted your remunerative evaluation projects to the IRB for review?
I never had a human subjects or a research proposal that required IRB review.
What type of research wouldn't be considered human subjects research that required IRB review?
Objection. Relevance.
It's not. Go ahead to the next question.
Okay. In your consulting projects that you didn't run through the IRB, did you ever use data in public presentations?
Objection. Relevance.
But you're going into all these different things, and we have to do the
Okay.
two questions are, why did he write the letter? And do you have evidence that had anything to do with your the investigation as to how it was created or how it was conducted?
Okay.
And we're going into all kinds of things and dealing with the matters that have nothing whatsoever to do with either one of them.
Okay.
Go ahead with the stuff that is actually relates to the claims in this case.
Okay, I'm trying to stay on point. I understand what you're saying. I'm trying. Do you remember awarding Chief Flynn and the Milwaukee Police Department the Agency Research Collaboration Award for Criminal Justice in 2014 based on the remunerative work that Drs. Hassell and Freiberger was doing on the STOP program?
Do I remember that? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Could that represent a conflation of remunerative private consulting with Helen Bader School of Social Welfare research?
It could, I guess. But I have no problem with people consulting. I've never had a problem with people consulting. I do have a problem when people say they have a formal connection to UWM and they do not. That was the essence of it, right? So
In the future, in the dealing with please, answer the question and stop. Yeah,
Okay,
the
fair enough. Thank you.
university attorney will have a question to follow up in the situation, but if there's no question, then don't go forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you work collaboratively with Dr. Lovell while you two were on the faculty?
Objection, relevance.
It's not,
Okay.
again,
Okay.
that again, you got to go in a completely different area than these things that you have your dispute with
Okay.
him or them. I'm just dealing with the claims in this case.
Okay. Thank you.
So, go ahead.
Okay. What is the role, when you were dean, what was the role of the associate dean in the school?
The associate dean handled the day-to-day activities associated with running the school, dealt with the department chairs, dealt with student issues, complaints. My role was fundamentally, as we had worked it out, was external and dealing with citizens, politicians, student groups. So we had sort of an internal, external bifurcation that is how the school was run. So, but she was very much connected to the day-to-day operations of the school.
And did you delegate work and tasks that were your responsibility to her to do?
Well, I'm not sure if I delegated anything to her. I mean, we had a conversation, obviously, as people who were running the school, uh, in terms of how to manage particular activities and address conflicts and or problems. But I did give her, pretty wide authority to make those kinds of decisions regarding the internal workings of the school. Yes.
When Associate Dean Lee was going to make decisions on behalf of the school, did she typically run them past you first to make sure you agreed with them?
Well, we had obviously daily conversations and we had weekly meetings around activities that affected the school. So yes, we would communicate if there was an issue of concern or if there was something that needed to be addressed and she didn't have either the time and or resources or the understanding that was required to address the concern. Well, then, of course, we had a very tight communication system.
And is That's all the questions I have at this moment, but I would like the opportunity, if needed, to recall.
No, nobody will be recalled after the situation. When they're done in the situation, the only person that you can recall is yourself. So, I mean, you be able to testify after him in the matter, but no, when people are done, they're done. But we have dealing with a cross and the circumstances that I need to ask, a couple questions that have been, that I just sort of basic things. One, did do you remember Dr. Hassell opposing discrimination in August of 2013?
Opposing discrimination?
Yeah, did when in August of 2013, do you remember her doing anything that you understood to be opposition to discrimination?
I don't recall that. I don't recall that.
Okay.
When you say opposing discrimination, I'm not sure what you mean.
Okay, it means saying something that implied or indicated that she thought some discrimination was occurring.
Uh, boy, that could have happened. I just don't remember.
Okay. And in dealing with, did you learn in 2016 sometime that she had, that there was a previous complaint, there was a complaint filed by Dr. Hassell against the university?
Yes, I believe. Yeah, I believe that that's the case. Yes.
And when do you understand that you learned of that?
Uh, boy, I really couldn't tell you. I, I don't recall. You're talking about something that was probably 8, 9 years ago. So I couldn't answer that.
Do you know in the circumstances, do you remember whether you had learned of the complaint prior to you writing the letter to the Chief Flynn?
Oh, I'm sure I had probably some kind of awareness of the complaint before that because the letter to Chief Flynn was a number of years later, obviously. But they were independent events. They were not connected in any way, shape, or fashion.
Okay. And dealing with, go ahead with redirect.
Thank you. As of 2017, had you ever heard Dr. Brandel's consulting work be referred to as a UWM collaboration?
Oh, it was never referred to as a UWM collaboration.
So there's a little bit of discussion about asking faculty to make connections with the MPD, and there's some discussions about a video in 2013, which is about the Washington Park project. Around that time, 2013, were you trying to plan any formal collaborations with the MPD?
Well, we did have discussions. The captain of the district, whose name I don't remember now, he did contact me and was interested in us coming down there and potentially doing something. I knew that Professor Hassell had a consulting relationship with MPD at the time. And I did go down to the police station, the District 4, and I did, visit them and their roll call and all that kind of stuff. And the idea was that if there was going to be something more formalized, that I would initiate that conversation with the captain and then he would take it up his chain of command at the police department. But it never materialized. No formal collaboration ever materialized.
At the time there was this video was made to talk in 2013, did you think it was likely to materialize?
Well, I was hoping that there would be something because I always had the hope as the dean of the college, and there was always encouragement throughout my entire career of faculty getting involved with agencies and bringing money into the campus and bringing the exposure and bringing the expertise that we had that we could provide to address and solve particular issues. We were always interested in doing that, but more often than not, they just didn't come to fruition. It just didn't happen for all sorts of reasons. A big reason was many of the agencies just did not want to pay the indirect charges that we had on grants. So what that basically meant was if we were going to do $100,000 worth of work, there may have been a 50% indirect, 40-50% indirect, depending on the source of the money. So 150,000 would give you 100,000, basically.
So I'm going to ask you another question about that. So let's say the MPD wants to hire Dr. Hassell. Can they do that through the university? Or could they have done that? All of these projects.
Sure. Yes.
Would Dr. Hassell have benefited her career-wise?
Yeah. I mean, she could list that, particularly if there was money coming into the university, and if there was it was a grant process and it was a competitive process. Well, that even made it more prestigious, and it could affect her annual summaries, her promotions from assistant to associate to full professor. Those things are taken into consideration very seriously.
So, in your opinion, would she professionally benefit more from having these things listed as university, if these had come in for her as university grants versus private consulting? At UWM, what would professionally benefit her more?
Objection, relevance?
This goes to the damage done if you can't get additional consulting work. You're claiming that that was the damage done to you, is that this work would have to come through as a grant rather than a consulting relationship. So I want to talk about what kind of damage it would be if it came as a grant rather than a consulting project.
I mean, this situation, my understanding that it's either that it both deals with or affects how the concern or issues between independent consulting and going to university looks, and also would potentially affect other things that I need to understand as far as in dealing with any potential remedy. So I'll overrule the objection. And my understanding is that it just dealing with his opinion regarding the circumstances, but given other matters that in his experience that, and you're obviously welcome to, when you testify, to state a different opinion, but that his opinion as to which would be most beneficial or look best for people's career is one which he can testify about. So go and answer the question. Would it been, what looks, as I understand it, what looks better on, for the university and, on the resume things, having independent consulting or being a named consultant in a university project?
Well, the latter is obviously more beneficial to the individual at the university. They get more kudos, they get more recognition. The university, obviously, it's a business at one level. Would love to have the dollars coming in. Would love to provide the kinds of answers to
Okay,
questions.
go ahead with the next question.
So I just want to clarify, and this is my last question. Based on your experience and in your opinion, is someone, Dr. Hassell is an associate professor. If she wants to be promoted to full professor, again, in your opinion, what's more likely to get her promoted, a grant or listing some independent consulting projects?
The grant activity.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, and now we cross.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you about what you just testified to make sure I understand it. When you were creating when you were dean and you were creating the 2013 video, was it your testimony that a captain from District 4 had contacted you and that's why you took the camera crew to the police district?
Objection, he did not testify to that.
Okay, I'm
He
asking.
didn't.
Okay.
Okay, then okay, so change it to basically, did you take the film that because of a contact from a captain?
No, I did not. These were independent events. I had a marketing person who handled the development of the film, and whether or not they were there when I was there, I don't believe they were there when I showed up, and when I dealt with the captain. So there was no connection at that point in time.
Go ahead.
To make the video when you were dean, you took a camera crew to District 3 and interviewed Captain Jason Smith, who's featured in the video. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe that's what happened. Yes.
And Captain Jason Smith discussed the burn project that Dr. Hassell was doing with him on the video.
Yes, he did, if I remember correctly. I haven't seen the video in a while, but I think that that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Is that you completed your cross?
Yes,
Okay. Any redirect, any more? Okay, then thank you, sir, and you're excused.
Okay, thank you very much.
And my understanding is that the next thing is that it's an opportunity for you, Dr. Hassell, to present additional testimony. Do you want to or not?
I do. But may I take a quick restroom break, please?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Dr. Hassell, please remember you continue to be under oath.
Okay, I'd like to actually ask to call Rick Lovell to the stand to.
No, no, as I said, in the situation um, that there is, I've already ruled on him. So go ahead with the, please remember you continue to be under oath.
Okay. I wanted to respond to testimony Dr. Freiberger made about me making an accusation against the district attorney's office. I never made an accusation against the district attorney's office or an assistant district attorney. I worked with an assistant district attorney, not directly, but on the burn project. And the only potential conflict that I can even think of was a part of the project, but wasn't really a part. I mean, it came out of that.
So I'm going to object because this was not, that testimony wasn't offered for the truth of the matter asserted, but I will also say that the point of that testimony was to see what former Dean Stojkovic learned, and we actually never got to that in his testimony, so I would be okay with that portion of Dr. Freiberger's testimony being struck because I didn't get to it with Dr. Stojkovic.
I don't, really need to strike it. It's not connected, so it's irrelevant. So this testimony is irrelevant. So this, I mean, if it wasn't connected up, so effectively, yes, that is, there was no reference to him being told about that or discussing it, so it didn't get there.
Okay.
Go ahead with your next area.
Okay. Ms. Herzog asked me a question about damages. The question was something like, is the main reason for my complaint damages, or is damages the main, my main concern? No, I don't remember testifying to that. And no, damages are a concern, as they always would be. But in this case, I've read through, what sorts of remedies are available by the ERD, and I know that they're limited. For me, the most important thing is accountability and exposure, because I'm alleging bad things happened to me. I know things have happened to other people, and my concern is trying to do something to stop it from occurring in the future. I wanted to talk about the remunerative consulting project that I received in 2017, which was the CIT and the CART assessment. 2-3 years prior, I don't remember the exact, but it was a substantial amount of time prior to that, Captain Obregon was the commander of the MPD Training Academy. And she and I met and discussed her ideas about research into police interactions with people with serious mental illness or people in crisis. We discussed that. She was earning her PhD, so she was very much interested in research. And she discussed wanting to try to get a grant to study that. I wanted to get a grant to run through the university to study that.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to object on relevance because I cannot figure out where this is going that is relevant.
What does this have to do with your claim?
Okay, so
Are you withdrawing the situation and going on to something else, or are you wanting to argue for its relevance?
I want to argue for its relevance.
And how is it relevant?
Because Ms. Herzog has talked a lot about me doing private consulting and not running projects through the university and the prestige associated with that. And so I want to respond to that so that it's on the record that I tried to do that.
That's not what I understood the testimony presented by the respondent to be about. My understanding, and just to check in the situation, is that the testimony was to support the concerns or the issues that were expressed in the letter. Is that correct, Ms. Herzog?
So I guess with respect to bringing in grants, I think the question is, would it have benefited her career more to bring it the work that she brought in as a remunerative, as a consultant, would it have benefited her UWM career more to bring it in as a grant?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but my understanding is that the main focus of the situation had to do with alleging or trying to show the reasonableness of the dean's letter talking about the benefits of grants rather than independent contracting situations, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so my understanding is that nowhere in the circumstances do I hear any testimony that any consideration was made in which there was a criticism of Dr. Hassell for it not being a grant or going down the matter so that whether or not that I don't understand any testimony about your efforts to make things grants would have anything to do with the issue, which is, I've gone over what the issues are over and over again. It doesn't relate to, or it misses the point of the testimony that was elicited by the respondent. So go ahead to the next area.
I don't have any additional questions. I'm okay. I'm done.
Okay, so that my understanding, and so then we go through in the, I need to go back to
Can I
get,
ask one follow-up question based on her testimony just now?
yes, yeah, yes.
So what are your damages here? You said damages are not the major issue, but they're an issue. So what are your damages?
The damage, objection, relevance, the damages are for the judge to determine, correct?
And my understanding is that the situation, that's I would not argue, I mean, normally that you can argue dealing with remedies, but as far as figuring out what the damage are specifically, they don't have to be any to proceed. It doesn't relate to the merits of the case, whether there are any actual damages in the situation. And that people's testimony as to what in this case they think that they could do would not go anything to show or to affect what I do. So I will sustain the objection to that about your question. Do you have any other cross?
No, that was it.
Okay, so then dealing with that, going to the exhibit list and see whether we have my understanding is that everything has been ruled on. that I can see, and just to check in the matter, I don't think it's changed since we started, but I will dealing with it. So my understanding is that the complainant rests, correct?
Yes.
All right. And so my understanding, given the shortness of that, of the, well, is there anything other than dealing with the exhibits that the respondent needs to present as part of an additional case?
No, I rest.
Okay, so my understanding is that then the respondent's 10 is withdrawn. You have dealing with talking about a list of instances.
Yes, that's withdrawn.
Okay, and then with that, and my understanding is that that I believe I have everything else has been ruled on regarding the response exhibits, right?
Yes.
Okay, and since there wasn't any respondents' additional testimony, there can't be a rebuttal. So my understanding is that the record is closed. And in the beginning, the parties requested a opportunity to let me just to do a responsive briefing. Is that what the parties still want to do?
Yes.
Okay, so that dealing with the 30 days from date today for the complainant then, and then 30 for the respondent and 15 for reply. Okay, is there anything else that dealing with, and please, if you reference things not admitted or whatever, then it's going to not be of much use, because the only things that I will consider in the matter are the exhibits received and the testimony given. Anything outside of that will not be considered. So is there anything that either questions or issues that either of you have regarding the briefs or anything else in that regard?
I apologize because I haven't done this in a bit. Do you have, is there particular formatting preferences of the court on briefing in terms of spacing and fonts and?
No, I don't. And for most purposes, the concern is clarity and brevity tends to be more favored in this situation than otherwise. I mean, obviously, I don't want single spaced and with no margins. I mean, I can't see it then in the matter. Outside of that, then there's not any, I mean, it's not, the form is not what's at issue. You know, it's dealing with content of the situation. Um, so no, there's not, as long, yes, as long as it's not single space with small font, or if you know, 20 font also would not be approved, you know, appreciated either, but within reason and dealing with the situation. Yeah, actually, I had somebody who sent me submissions with I think a 20 or 25 font. It required a lot of paper because couldn't fit much in any page. Um, so it may have been even larger. So no, I don't want that. So is there anything else? Any other questions before we close?
I do. Do we email it to you, copying everybody? Well, I would email it to you.
That's
copying
fine. I
everybody.
mean, traditionally it says, I mean, I have, you know, people are still dealing with limiting that in the situation, but in my view, that the insisting on the traditional mail or text or situation seems to be more work for the parties and to the department and not too much benefit. So I'm fine with emailing it as PDFs.
Okay, PDFs.
Yeah. You don't want to send it Word, which I can modify or, you know, I'm just, needs to be PDFs. Okay, so anything else?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay, then thank you both, and I wish you both the best. And we're done.
Thank you.